I'm just catching up now. Oh, hi, everybody. We decided to get started straight away because so many of you are in the chat. Usually we have a natter, but we're both pretty tired. And yeah, so especially Claire. So we're jumping straight into tonight. We are on our second last week of the Storm of Swords. Watch out this week on my Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire channel. I will put up a video going through the Feast for Crows schedule and maybe even the dance schedule. I might do both of them this week. I'll run it past you first, Claire, the Oracle. But yeah, we've got a 9-week schedule for Feast that I've just finished this week. So I'll go through that in a video during the week. But tonight, it's all about Jaime 9 to Jon 11. And next week, we'll be talking about Tyrion 11 till the end, which is Mers Frey in the epilogue at the end, I think. So almost at the end of Storm. I can't believe it, actually, because we started this reread in the depths of autumn, and now we're already sweltering in the summer.
This heat.
I know. And it's kind of the opposite in the book. It's getting colder. It
is getting colder, although the weeps in one of the chapters here, which made me think, that's interesting, because it's supposed to be like the depths of winter. I wouldn't imagine it would be the kind of conditions where the wall weeps, unless there's I'm taking that as a kind of emotional thing because the Red Witch is there.
Well, there's a lot of weird things going on at the wall at the moment. Definitely the most interesting place to be, I think, right now. That's where we'll mainly be tonight. Just say hello to a few people in the chat before we get started. Lady Wolverton's Den, so nice to have you here. I've been following your stuff and I'm really happy to have you here. Connie is here. Thank you so much, Connie, for coming along. Johnny is listening. Hi, Johnny. Lovely to see you. And if you have any questions, let us know in the chat. We are starting off with Jaime. This is such a lovely chapter. It's like one of those few chapters in Storm where it's like, oh, it's a nice little hug. It reminds me of a Game of Thrones chapter, if that makes sense, because it's more about I don't know, it's more about epic kind of journeys, which is what a Game of Thrones is all about. I feel like this chapter is kind of launching Brienne on an epic journey, and maybe even Jaime as well. So in this chapter, we have the whole weird Jaime Cersei conversation as well, but this mainly for me, this is the chapter where Jaime sends Brienne on her epic quest to keep Lady Catelyn's promise and his vow to Lady Catelyn.
And this is after he's already worked out quite quickly that it was a fake Arya, not the real Arya, that was going back to the north. So he kind of guessed that right. He guessed that right straight away by figuring out this girl looks a lot older than Arya would. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of things in this chapter that just make me think, I suppose I'm looking for, I can see now why that theory, or why people have that theory. And, in this chapter, he describes from his point of view that he thinks Brienne has got stunning eyes, and he seems to put a lot of faith in Brienne. He's basically in his reputation, his honor, onto Brienne. He sees a good bet, I guess, having had the journey the opposite way down to King's Landing. He's sending her away again, very valiantly, with the words of, defend Ned's daughter with Ned's sword, and this is all about, this is my very last chance at honor, is find Sansa, find Ned's daughter and protect her.
So how much of
that? Well, it just made me think, that's great, but I'm just trying to figure out Jaime's thought process at the moment, because there's also a lot of gossip going around in King's Landing, and a lot of things that are fueled by Cersei as well. Mm-hmm. That Sansa was responsible for, or partly responsible for, killing Joffrey. So there's this. I know they have a strained relationship, or they had a strange relationship Jaime and his children, or Jaime and his son, but to kind of champion the possible murderer of his child just seems like what is he doing?
Well, I mean, he's gonna let Tyrion go as well, right? So and Tyrion will tell him that he murdered Joffrey and he'll still let him go. Yeah, I don't know. Jaime, I think, remember, he is a Kingslayer. Potentially Kinslayer if you want to buy into Jaime as a Targ as well. But he is a Kingslayer, and I think for him, Joffrey was a bad king. Forget about the fact, like, for Jaime, it's his Kingsguard oath comes first. And I even wrote this down. It's so ironic because he's the one Lannister that adheres to both of the Lannister words, like the official ones and the unofficial ones. Hear me roar. We've talked about this with Jaime all the time. He jumps into things. He's really impetuous. That's all he does. Roar, roar, roar. But he's also the best Lannister at paying debts. If you think about what he's the best Lannister at doing that. So, and he pushes against being a Lannister the most as well. So it's a really weird kind of, for me, I think his Kingsguard duties are number one, and yet he's the most Lannister in a way, although Tyrion is also very Lannister. But my question about the Brienne thing, do you think he was only going to send her on this quest if she could convince Loras that she hadn't murdered Renly? Was that a test? Because it felt like a bit of a test.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose from Jaime's point of view, it's always good to get a second opinion. So I suppose he was using Loras as, I think she's honourable. I think, I can trust her. But let's see what Loras thinks, because he's the one that really had, skin in the game kind of thing. It's like... If she hadn't have passed Loras's test, she wouldn't have. But that was it. She was,
Is she? I think the reason why is that a bit of a test, because there's one thing Jaime isn't very good at, and that's diplomacy, and winning people over. He's not the best at that. So if Brienne, she's been a bit iffy around Jaime. Like, she's won him over, but she's very divisive with other people. So if she can do it with Loras, which is another, she's going to have to be able to do that if she's going to find the Starks and save them.
I think, I mean, there's I think people have this opinion that Jaime's a bit, he struggles with, wasn't he like dyslexic or something? Struggles with his letters, and now
hard to read Barstons.
Right. He's got this challenge where he needs to like instill fear and lead his men as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, but at the same time he knows he can't fight. He's useless. Yeah. And it's that illusion of, the minute that everyone realizes that he's done for completely. So he's putting a lot of effort into making sure he holds on to that, let them think that I have power. But I think Jaime's pretty clever at figuring things out in his own way. He does. He's not necessarily an intellect or a book reader or very, he doesn't have the same approach as Tyrion, but I think he does. He's more kind of, he's a warrior, so he goes with his instincts, but quite often, he can figure things out or get a good grasp of somebody's, honor, like I think Brienne's shown herself there, but I think he's completely blinded by Cersei. That's his Achilles heel is, and he's now beginning, these are the chapters where Jaime's beginning to think a lot about, well, we are, I mean, he says in this chapter when they're arguing that they are brother and sister, they get up to like deplorable things as brother and sister, but they're not Target. He sort of screams it. We are not Targaryens,
which is something that people like to use as, oh well, then they must be.
Yes, well, in that case, they must be.
Connie makes the point that Brienne's getting better and better with her words, better than when Kat first met her, and I think that's very true, Connie. And there's that whole like the interplay between it's Kingslayer when she says it's Jaime, and he's kind of this push-pull thing with Jaime, which he has going on with Cersei as well. But yeah, sorry, I jumped all over the place there. If we go back to the beginning, with Tommen ruling and signing all the, like, he's talking about the tedious work of counseling. So Jaime, for a change, you know, there's a few characters that are like, you know, Sam, Davos, Jaime, Arya potentially. Like there's a few characters that are just not interested in power at all. They don't want to be leaders. And this Jaime, he really hates it. It's like, and of course, as you said, if there's some sort of learning difference there with Jaime, he definitely need a scribe in an exam now, that's for sure. But if there's something going on there, he's definitely going to find it. His attention does not sit well in this kind of setting. Interestingly, there's a list of pardons given, and the first one is for the Westerlings, of course. So that confirms by the end of Storm that the Westerlings are still a Lannister family through and through. And as you mentioned, we have fake Arya, Faria. Did anyone call her Faria? No, fake Arya. And we need a fake Arya name in the chat, people. Thanks, David. And who else came? Sunny is here. Elamore is here. Thank you so much, folks, for coming. He makes a really great comment about real Arya, and the comment is, the real Arya Stark is buried in Flea Bottom in an unmarked grave. And when we get to that Arya chapter, a couple of chapters, the Arya Stark died in King's Landing. And I mean that figuratively. Once Jory cut off her hair. Wasn't it Jory that cut off her hair?
Yes.
Yeah. Cut off her hair as at the execution. I mean, they weren't too far from Flea Bottom, so yeah, she's there in an unmarked grave. So I really liked that line. And then we have this really weird interaction with Tywin, we find out about the Mountain's injuries. We find out that Dragonstone is unprotected. He doesn't know what Stannis' game is, but we'll find out very soon.
So we as readers are given the heads up that, Stannis isn't at Dragonstone anymore. So we can, I mean, when I read this the first time, it did take me a while to put two and two together. Who is this king? Who are these band? Oh, right. Yeah. It's the one that's
Yaren,
left. The one that is, yes, Yaren.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. Yeah. So Dragonstone is unprotected, but a lot of discussion about the Mountain, and Tywin is very stubborn and very adamant that they're going to save his life. And yet doesn't want to piss off the Martells. And I just wonder, why do you want to save the Mountain so much? Is it just because he's like this object of fear that they can use to threaten? It seems like the best thing to do would be just to let him die, and it would appease the Martells.
It would, and I'm guessing either way, Tywin would turn whatever to his advantage. But I think he does use him as like this kind of personal weapon, almost, you know, where he can just tell him to turn to a different area and head off to a certain location and just create chaos.
Oh, hi, Kat. No intrusion. So Tywin also makes a really interesting point, which will be relevant, I guess, for wins. Stannis will fight to the bitter end and then some.
Yeah,
it's that's and it's horrible because we're going to see Stannis in the next chapter come in and like save the day, and knowing what we do going into wins, it's like, oh god, where is this going?
I have to mention this again, that in this chapter, and not 2 chapters since, the number 1,000 has been referenced when Cersei and Jaime are having an argument, and she's saying, "Oh, an angry cripple, how terrifying, what an absolute bitch." I mean, she really is nasty. But she tells him that Tyrion is, because he's kind of wondering whether or not he needs to he's trying to figure out, Jaime's trying to figure out could Tyrion really have done this or not? Is he, you know, where do my loyalties lie when it comes to my brother? And Cersei tells him, your brother Tyrion has lied 1,000 times, and so have I. And it's like, it can't be. I don't know what people think. Am I just really hung up on this? But it seems like every other chapter, every 2 or 3 chapters, the number 1,000 in reference to, you could say, oh, Claire, it's just one of those numbers that references a large quantity. You know, 1,000 times we've done 1,000 people came to see the fight. 1,000, you know, it's always kind of used randomly for various different examples. But it just, I mean, would you, if I was trying to describe something that was a big, but you know, a figure like I might have said Tyrion lied 1,000,000 times if I really wanted to. You know, it's just this, like, why 1,000? Is 1,000 like the biggest number they can think of? Have they not? Or is it? Or is something influencing every other chapter here? And at some point, when we know the end of the story, somebody will look back and go, look how many times 1,000 was referenced throughout chapters that had nothing to do with Bloodraven, nothing to do with necessarily what was happening with the old gods in that particular chapter, but just a random reference to it. I think I just have to say it's weird to me how often the number 1,000 is referenced.
Like 100 times. Yeah, that comes up quite a bit as well. I think maybe, well, 100 times might refer to like the average lifespan at this time. 1,000, I feel like 1,000 is where, as a civilization, you kind of start to lose track, or a history starts to blend together a little bit.
Right.
And we might see that with the Long Night, for instance, or with story like this horn that we're going to get in the next chapter. It's probably not the horn that they're looking for. So, and I think the horn that's in the next chapter is about 1,000 years old. We'll find out in Dance. I think it's 1,000 years old. But yeah, it is interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, I know George's sci-fi world is 1,000 worlds. Is that right, or something like that? But yeah, I'm interested in Cersei through Jaime's eyes. She sounds so beautiful through his eyes. The description of her dressed in white with like emeralds dripping from her sleeves and her golden hair. It's like, no, Cersei never looks this beautiful. It's only when Jaime sees her that she's this beautiful. I mean, when Tyrion describes her as an object of beauty, it's usually in a much more sexual way, which is weird. But for Jaime, it's never sexual. His descriptions of her aren't necessarily sexual. He really admires her for her beauty. And it just makes me feel bad because it never ends well.
Yeah.
We haven't seen one interaction between them that has gone well, where it's just, oh, we'll have a romantic moment and then we'll leave. It always ends in a fight. But so they figure out between them that Joffrey was the one who sent the cat's paw to Bran. And Cersei is convinced that it's still convinced that's Tyrion that killed Joff, but Jaime, even at this point, isn't that sure. He's still not entirely certain. I think for me, this is the chapter and specifically this fight, the interaction with Tywin, the interaction with Brienne. This is the chapter when he's reading through the White Book. It's the chapter where he chooses the Kingsguard and his honor as a knight over his family.
Yes.
And I mean, we'll probably talk about that a little bit more when we get to Tyrion next week. But yeah, I love this chapter from a Jaime point of view. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like Jaime chapters. If you're somebody that likes Jaime chapters, can you let me know in the chat? I really like Jaime chapters, and I have a whole new appreciation. I don't know if we have another one next week. I think this is our last one, right?
Yes, I think it is. Let me just double check. We've got Sansa, Jon, Sam,
Tyrion.
So we may see him feature a little bit in Tyrion's chapter.
Yeah,
but
we've seen a lot in Tyrion's chapter. Well, we have I think him. I know Cersei and Brienne have a load of chapters in Feast, but I think Jaime has quite a number as well. So, yeah. But yeah, it's just ironically, you know, he's the one who's always paying his debts, and you know, he tells Brienne, or isn't it Brienne he tells that he doesn't have a father, or he doesn't consider time with his father anymore.
He's very honest with Brienne about how, because I think he really does underneath everything. I mean, I do enjoy Jaime chapters, but Jaime's not one of my favourite characters. I don't know. I just think, there's a lot of things that I can't get over with Jaime. Although I do find his journey quite fascinating, and I think he's kind of using Brienne as the vessel for his, you know, whatever happens here to me in King's Landing, I'm telling you that I want to be an honourable person, and this is my last chance to be able to do anything about it. I'm entrusting you with this mission.
And the interesting thing,
I don't think he would have said that to anybody else. I think he's lucky that he came across Brienne, actually.
The interesting thing, he's putting his legacy, his chance at a legacy of honor, in her hands, and nobody will ever know about it, potentially, unless she goes out of her way to make that known. Potentially no one will ever know about it. So that is honor. That's not glory. And yeah, I agree. There are insurmountable moral dilemmas with Jaime. And this isn't to excuse every shitty decision that every human being in this world makes, but it is, the Bran thing is really out of sorts, and he doesn't even quite understand it himself when he's speaking to Cersei. She doesn't even understand, why did you throw this kid out a window? It does make me wonder, was he completely in control of that decision?
Yeah.
For Bran to be Bran, that had to happen. So, and that isn't to like, oh, Bloodraven is behind everything. I think that's too easily kind of used as a get out jail free card, to get out of ethical dilemmas with your favorite characters, the free card. But yeah, I don't know. There's something not quite, it doesn't add up, but at the same time, it does put him on a more interesting journey as a character. And I really enjoy his chapters. He's not my favorite POV, but I definitely I've enjoyed him. I think, yeah, I've enjoyed him. One of the most enjoyable POVs in Storm Swords for me, I think. Yeah,
I do like the way the chapter ends with Jaime looking at the white book and wondering how his page will end, you know, and who will write the rest of his story. So that's quite, yeah, because I mean, I think we're all, that applies to all of us, doesn't it? We're all you know, part of our own story and kind of captains of our own destiny in terms of how our lives unfold and the choices that we make and the decisions that we make. So
he is in a unique position where he knows that his history will be recorded. You know, apart from the kings and queens and maybe the hands, I mean, he's in a very unique position where he can see it in black and white as he's living his life. It's kind of like having Twitter.
Yeah.
The book is like, everything is there for everybody to see all the time. So anyway, that's Jaime. Jaime, we'll see you in Feast. And let's move on to Jon. I love Jon chapters this week. Very exciting. Speaking of POVs that I haven't really enjoyed, some of Jon's chapters have been a little bit of a trek for me. Not a trek, but just not that exciting. I think some of the battle scenes, while they are amazing, rereading them, it's just like, oh, well, I know what's going to happen. It's kind of, not that they're badly written or anything, but just from a reread point of view, they're not always the thing that gets me going, except when I get to this kind of thing where there's lots of, well, we've got Val, we've got Mance, we've got Stannis, we got Tormund. I mean, what else do you want in a Jon chapter? So where do you want to start?
Well, it's funny that this chapter starts with Jon thinking about the sort of nature, the treacherous nature of bastards, and that he's like crippled with shame to be like remembered as a turncloak and a murderer, and he doesn't want all of his brothers to think that, you know, he basically turned his cloak. And then contrast that with the next Jon chapter. That must have been that must have been a real difficult decision, actually. That must have been a really terrible decision, because he could quite easily have swept all of that doubt away and said, no, this is, you know, this is who I am now. But anyway, that's the next chapter. But I did think that it was interesting to kind of juxtapose that with him being mortally ashamed to be remembered as, oh, well, you know, everyone kind of thought he was going to do that anyway. That's just the bastard's nature. But yeah, then he gets pulled out of this ice cell that he's in, which just the description of it, 5 foot by 5 foot. So you can't stand up, you can't sit down, you can't lie down. It's just just not very pleasant. So he's brought out of the cell to stand in front of Slint as this kind of, you know, we're going to give you one last chance, but actually it's not really. They're effectively sending him on a suicide mission, not to treat with Mance, or to discuss any options or a way forward, but to kill him. And you know, Jon's thinking, well, there's no way I'm going to come back from that. Slint is just horrible. He's just, and the way Alistair's fawning all over him as well. And it just, again, this chapter links a lot to the next chapter with me about everyone's kind of this feeling at the moment of, you know, do we really want an outsider for new Lord Commander? There must be another way around this, and that just again, his sense of privilege. I know he's been sent there by Cersei, but just everything's going on at the wall, and it just made me think. Actually, it's quite fast paced, the stories and the things that happen up at the wall. You know, there's like all of a sudden there's a king there, a queen there. There's the election for the new Lord Commander. We've already lost it just feels like the stories happen. I don't know whether it's just there's lots more characters. Do you?
Well, I feel like things happen fast, but I also feel like they should be happening over a good bit of time to give Stannis a chance to get there. Like it feels like Mance and them feel pretty settled for having just attacked. Like they have to have been hanging around for a little while, maybe a week or so, maybe longer. I mean, he was in the cells for a couple of nights, right? Yeah. So, I just feel like it should all be taking a little bit longer than it is. But, I mean, the Janis Slint, there's something, we'll get to it in the Sam chapter as well. There's something not quite right about this whole election business. I'm not sure what's going on. But, this proposition, or this kind of what they're asking Jon to do, can't think of words. Anyway, it's too hot. What they're making Jon do by killing Mance, I mean, he's standing in this guy's tent. His bride, his wife, the mother of his child is giving birth, and Jon is like, can I really do this in front of the woman that's giving birth? Can I really do this inside a man's own tent? I mean, he's really, you know. And then when Stannis does arrive and he realizes it is Stannis, I'm wearing my now way too big Stannis t-shirt. When Stannis does arrive, rather than meet Stannis outside, goes, oh, feck this, I prefer to watch a woman give childbirth. Just goes back in. It's just one of my favorite moments ever. It's like, rather than go and see a king who's come all the way from the south, you're going to go in as a 16-year-old and watch a woman give childbirth, which, by the way, he will never explain. He watched this woman die, and at 16 he's fine. That's fine. So I feel like George kind of cheated us there a little bit. I would have loved to see that from his point of view.
Yeah,
to see this woman give birth in a tent.
We did skip over that a little bit. I mean, I do remember the sense of reading this again, reading it for the first time. I've read it several times now, and it really did. And I think this is the moment for a lot of Stannis fans that is kind of planted in their hearts as, yes, you know, Stannis the Manis. This is the moment. And I definitely feel as though on first reading, this was a real like, oh, you know, Stannis is the hero. He really is the true king. He's just having such a shit time from everybody else, but his intentions are honourable, blah, blah, blah. But reading it this time, I've got so many more questions about what Stannis is doing and why he's doing it. And, you know, I think I'm less of a, it's weird. I'm kind of less of a Stannis fan, more of a Sansa fan.
After this reread,
yeah, which is completely the opposite of how, you know, the position that I would have taken before, really kind of delving into this and threading the themes in the chapters together.
That's probably because we've spent a long time talking about the religious fundamentalism, which seems to be hitting me a lot more. And I know we've talked about that as well, just like how our attitudes in our own lives have changed towards religion and stuff. So maybe that's why it's hitting us both, because I'm definitely less of a Stannis fan this time around.
I think I'm just looking at him now as like, in terms of what's left of the, you know, the War of the Five Kings, then yeah, maybe he's like the, you know, the best of a bad bunch kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, you can't take away though that moment of, especially when you're hearing the audio version, with, again, I always struggle to remember his name, Broidetrice, when he's like screaming Stannis, Stannis, Stannis at the end, and I mean, it's amazing, really. One thing I did forget is I thought this was just Stannis, but I'd completely forgotten that the kind of first wave of this attack were actually men from Eastwatch, men of the Night's Watch. So
they don't show that in the show, do they?
No, but I mean, obviously what that means is that Stannis had got, Stannis had got to the wall. By the time it took Jon to leave on his mission to kill Mance, Stannis had arrived at the wall, had, you know, the workings, or at least had arrived at Eastwatch, and, you know, colluded with the men of the Night's Watch for this kind of combined joint attack. I had no idea that the Night's Watch were involved in this battle.
Bran is here. Hi, Bran. Lovely to see you. And Lady Wolverton thanks you, Clare, for defending Stannis, that she catches hell for it. But I'm going to hold up for her. I don't understand. I love Sansa. I love Sansa. I still think Sansa is going to be queen in the end. I can totally see her being queen. But and Bran says he's always defended Sansa. And Meridian is here. Hi, Meridian. So glad you could make it. So yeah, one of my favorite moments in the TV show as well, when you see, because they actually
the formation and
the formation is the same, right? Because I mean, Stannis has 1,000 men attack. It's almost like 30,000 wildlings. So he leaves them room to escape. I think that's how it works. He leaves them room so that they won't. He wants to create chaos basically, and sends the attack in 3 waves. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And I believe they kind of show that in the TV show. They have them coming in 3 directions.
Yeah, so, it's like a spiral the way they sort of circle in. Yeah.
So there's a lot to talk about here. We have warging. We have a potential horn that'll just for decoration. I think it's not what we know later. It's not the horn. But what would you like to talk about first?
Well, I did think that it was quite sweet when Jon and Tormund met up again, and they were, you know, it was kind of like regaling old tales of war heroes. So they were like drinking to Donal Noy and Mag the Mighty and Ygritte, you know, and they were like sharing a kind of toast, which I thought was really quite sweet. And then we get to find out as Jon goes deeper into Mance's camp that I reckon they probably knew that he was lying all along, you know, and he was giving them the numbers. And, you know, I mean, Oral was able to see what was happening via the eagle. And, you know, it would take nothing for the eagle to fly up to the wall and have a good old scout around and come back and, you know, not corroborate what Jon is saying about the numbers at the wall. And, you know, they can probably even see the dupes, the dummy, you know, the straw men that they had across the wall. I think he knew all of that, yet he somehow had some value in Jon of being like with him and his camp. There's a few things here that Mance says that really interest me.
Can I just interject for 2 seconds?
Yes.
Bran, I am totally on board with Sansa and Gendry. That is like, yes, definitely. I have held that belief for a long time. I'm totally on board. Totally on board. Sorry.
Well, I just going back to Mance when, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a valid question. You've got this horn, the Horn of Winter. It's supposed to bring the wall down. Why don't you do that? And clearly Mance is like, well, look, that's not really. I mean, he gives some vague answer about, oh, the short way isn't always the right way and blah, 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 blah. But basically, he doesn't want to do that. He's using the horn as leverage, as a bargaining chip for protection, because what he's really concerned about is the others, which is kind of what Stannis is saying later on in the next chapter. They're all kind of, in a way, singing from the same hymn sheet. However, some of the stuff that he says about blood, too much blood would be spilt. You know, what's the point? What's the point of doing this? But when he says, will they, Jon's thinking to himself, will the wildlings obey the laws? I know that he won't kneel. And he's thinking about that. You know, how's this going to go down? What's going to happen here? And in the TV show, I think they showed that quite blatantly. I mean, I know there's lots of theories about whether or not that was actually Mance, and you know, there's all sorts of theories about that. But yeah, I mean, even later on when Mance gets to the wall and they do the old switcheroo with Rattle shirt. Why didn't she kill Mance? He is a king. He was a king beyond the wall. That's king's blood. Why didn't she? Why did she save him?
I don't know, because Mance says that he wasn't anointed. Like, he actually says it in this chapter. He's not anointed. So,
well, yes, that's the other thing he says. I'm as low born as a man can get, which to me means he's saying I'm a bastard.
Yeah, and he says that, and he said there's no like something about I didn't inherit from a father, or I don't have to worry about an older brother, or it doesn't matter whether I'm the oldest, or something like that. He talks about it's very, the way he talks about it, it's quite specific, and I can see why people start to have theories about Mance not necessarily being Mance.
I think he's either a stark bastard of Rickard, or maybe, I mean, did Ned's father have brothers of his own? Maybe one of his brothers bastards, or he is, because there's just too many references to Mance and Winterfell, and Mance and being sympathetic towards Jon being a bastard and them having lots in common. But I don't think from a, you know, I am your father, Rhaegar Targaryen kind of way. I think from a, we have a lot in common because we both have that experience of knowing what it feels like to be a Stark bastard. I think the Starks traditionally send their bastards to the wall. and that's what happened with Mance. I think there's that's one theory. The other theory, which really kind of has a lot of legs, I think, in this chapter and the next one, is that Mance is, you know, one of the baby boys that was given up by Craster, but somehow made it out of that situation, made it out of that scenario, that he could be, you know, one of Craster's sons.
Yeah, so Bran says that King's blood is a joke. Yeah, it could be. And Lady Wolverton says, I think he thought Jon would be the only one to save them or care about their fate. I think that's true. And I also think, like you said, Claire, they're hedging their bets. Like, I mean, they don't know, like Meridian says as well, they don't really know what this horn does, if it does anything. And also, I mean, even Mance knows that he's bringing all sorts of trouble beyond the wall. It's just a question of whether other people can accept that trouble over the trouble they're running from. But he is bringing cannibals, he is bringing pillagers, he is bringing giants, for goodness sake. That's what he wants to bring beyond the wall.
Speaking of giants, do you think this, because this, I mean, just going back to this Horn of Winter, and you know, Mance is wanting to use the horn as safe passage, but just the size of this thing, it's described as being 8 foot at the curve of the horn, 8 foot at the curve. Yeah. So God knows how enormous it actually is, and it's got rings and rings of like gold and runes, and this seems like an old gods kind of, you know, an old religion kind of weapon, and I'm wondering if it's just because of its size, is it something that belongs to the giants, or was once wielded by the giants, or the giants should blow this horn?
Does Torment say that they took it from a giant's grave later?
Right, okay, I'm not sure, I can't remember.
So I'm not sure. If anyone in the chat can confirm that.
I just feel because of how huge it is, there must be some connection with the giants.
There is bronze in it, which when I think bronze, I think First Men. But I'm not sure if the giants would necessarily have had bronze. Maybe though, but it's too young. Sorry, it's not old enough to be the horn they're looking for. Right, the horn they're looking for wouldn't have that kind of metal in it, we assume.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I don't know if we have a couple of horns now going into, that sounds really rude, but we have a couple of horns going into, we've all got the horn with the wind. I don't know if anyone gets that outside of Ireland. But we've loads of comments here about Mance and Dala and now I've lost everything.
Oh, yeah. It was from a giant's grave, either Tormund or Val says.
Okay.
Thanks, Bran.
Thanks, Bran. Bran says, you realise Dala is one of Craster's daughters, right? Is that confirmed? I didn't realise that. I thought that was just a theory.
Well, there is that quote later. It's actually in the next book in Feast.
Okay.
And it will jump out at us. But on several rereads, for some reason, it didn't jump out of me until Anne Sweet YFT mentioned a couple of years ago. She said that she was reading Feast, and in one of Sam's chapters, the quote is something like Sam describing the baby that's with them, you know, the little monster, which is obviously, we know at this stage, we know that the baby is Dala's baby, not Gilly's baby. But in a Feast chapter, he describes the baby as Mance's son and Craster's grandson.
Oh, okay.
And it just doesn't, you just kind of read, it doesn't go, you know, it doesn't necessarily go in first time.
The editor missed that one.
Yes, and
Right.
which means that one of two things. It means that Dalla is a daughter of Craster, or it means that Mance is a daughter of is a son, is one of the sons of Craster.
Mance too old? Maybe he's not too old to be Craster's son. What would be the age difference there? I guess Craster could have been.
Yeah, Craster's probably about 20 years older than Mance, I would say.
And yeah, we have it's Varamir, right? That's the warg. I had to check there. Varamir that he meets here. Is this where he meets Varamir, or am I getting it wrong?
Yes, Varamir Sixskins is in this chapter, yeah.
And as he's dying, the wolves that were with him start fighting, and the eagle that he had been warging, which had a bit of Orell still left in him, it starts. I think that's attacked first. Or no, Varamir is attacked, and then the eagle starts screaming, or the eagle gets attacked as well. Yeah. And then the wolves that were fine, and then they start fighting, and it's just this really weird scene, and you're like, yay, I can't wait to get to that prologue again. One of my favorites. But yeah, so just a weird, because they're calling him Warg as well, John. He's been called Warg in this chapter and in the next chapter too. So, but I feel for Mance. I feel bad for Mance here, because it is kind of like, you know, a teacher right now somewhere in the world, just at the last week of school, everybody's itching to get out, and you're trying to keep a lid on everything. It's like, not yet, not yet, and you're exhausted, and everybody's on their last nerve, and it's like, Mance is like, just please, it's a horde, I'll take down the wall, please let me past, just let us get out of here. It's like he's at the end, and he managed to knock up his missus as well in the middle of all this, so he's he's got the timing of Poldark. If anyone gets that reference, I'll be really happy. So it's a bit of a nightmare. Terry, Barbara, who else has joined us? Thank you guys. I'm hopeless at keeping up the chat tonight. Getting too excited about the North. So I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more about Stannis when we get into the next chapter. You know, and Val, obviously, in the next chapter, with her honey-coloured hair. Oh, Lady Wolverton loves Poldark. Oh my God, we'll talk about Poldark another time, Lady Wolverton. I've even started watching the 1970s one because I need more Poldark in my life. But yeah, so I don't know if I have anything else. Just John just decided to go in and watch the child.
That was a bit of a strange decision.
It's so random. It's like, oh, I'll just go in here. Like, even like, why don't you sit outside the tent to make sure they're safe from the outside? Why are you going in?
I suppose it's like, you know, I don't know, maybe he felt that he had to defend the women, you know, but I mean, these are wildling women that can look after themselves, but it was a...
But I mean, do it outside.
Yeah. I mean, he does have this like king shrink, you know, in the next chapter where he says to Stannis, "You took your time though, didn't you?" Is that all about? Yeah, and Stannis thinks that's hilarious.
But even in the Sam chapter and John 12, like he's doing this whole moody emo John thing at the moment. He's going through a phase. And so Bran says Val is a Targaryen descendant from Queen Alysanne. There's a lot of Val theories out there. Is it the Order of the Green Hand have a theory that Jon and Val are twins? Is that right? Were you talking about that before?
Yes, there are theories about Jon being twins with about lots of different people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to Jon at the end of our discussion tonight. Let's move on.
I do have to say, if you are listening to the audio, or if you've ever listened to Roy Dotrice, he's a fantastic narrator.
Yeah.
But sometimes the odd character that I mean, what, he would have been like a 80-odd-year-old man. So, you know, but Val to me is, I've got this notion of the Red Witch and the White Witch being at the wall, and she's
I
this
feel like
magical.
She's Kate Blanchett or something.
Yeah, she's like this strong, powerful, you know, ice magic, White Witch kind of. And then this whole thing about there should be no women at the wall, but then you've got these two women, and I think this is, you know, there could be this epic battle between these two like forces of different religions, like ice and fire. And she comes across with a beauty as well, the way she's described as, I just think, you know, you say like Kate Blanchett, this ethereal kind of elven sort of look. And Roy Dotrice gives her this like West Bromwich accent. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like
that. Yeah,
that's completely changed my like visual on what I think on what I think Val looks like. It's like, do you mind? Is it all right if we go and take the baby?
Yeah, this is like my husband has a huge problem because, like, obviously my favorite actor on the Game of Thrones is Liam Cunningham. That's not obvious to everybody. It's very obvious to me. But and Ivan's like, if I ever meet that fella, I'm gonna be asking him about the accent that he picked for Flea Bottom. I mean, he's the only one who talks like that in Flea Bottom. I'm like, how dare you disrespect him? You leave him alone. But yeah, you also have a problem with Roy Dotrice's Welsh for the Lannisters and for Tyrion. But Brienne has a weird. Roy Dotrice is this kind of a stupid sounding. Brienne.
Yeah, he has a bit of a West Country accent like that for me. All right. And she just like a
you can
country
kind of see where
bumpkin.
he's going though in terms of like
that one I can kind of forgive, but just the
Val one makes no sense. But in fairness, how about he used 1,000 characters to voice.
That's
so
true.
He's got what haven't I used?
Oh, it just completely crushed my I was the anticipation of the entrance of Val as a character was like, oh no.
I wonder who will they get to replace him. I enjoyed Stephen Fry as the Harry the Harry Potter. So
I was thinking that the other day because
it's a mammoth job, though.
It definitely takes you along on a journey, definitely. And like Stuart's always saying to me, just especially when I feel like, oh my God, I've got another 3 chapters to do this week, I haven't got time. And he'll say, just read them. You'll read them quicker than you do sit down listening to them and making notes. But I do enjoy the fact that he does take you on this journey. Plus, I can paint my nails as well at the same time as listening and making notes and things. But some of the chapters are, especially the ones that are going to be coming up in Feast, like it tells you on the app how many minutes there are in each of the chapters, and some of them are like 40-50 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Which I know I would be able to read in about 15-20 minutes, but I do enjoy the audio version. This is the first time in about 7, 8 rereads of this series that I've actually listened to the audio, and I think it is a different experience.
I mix it up depending on the week, but I've mainly read Storm actually this time around, but it is much quicker to read it. But and also I like to underline and highlight things because I know that annoys you, Claire. You wouldn't treat your book so badly.
We've made the hyenas start laughing with Meridian. She's at her with the wildlife animals at the moment, and she works with hyenas, and us laughing made the hyenas start laughing, which is hilarious.
I'm just thinking about the Lion King. Goldberg. Will we move on to Arya, our last Arya chapter as well? Great Arya chapter. One of my favorite moments as well in the show is this Arya chapter. Actually, it's well done in the show. I feel Arya 13, folks, and poof, this talk about taking us on a journey. This chapter takes us on a journey, with the Hound and Arya. The Hound behaving very suspiciously in this chapter from the beginning. I feel like he has given up, even before the fighting starts. He's given up. I don't know how you feel about that, but
well, I think he probably just doesn't know what to do next, because it seems like every avenue they go down. And I don't know whether it is the ransom that he's after, whether it is, some sort of favor in. I mean, it was at one point some sort of way into Rob's camp.
He's definitely got PTSD and like severe depression. I'm not a qualified psychologist, but I feel like that's what's going on with him.
It kind of does feel like he's forcing this to be the end of his journey. He's tired. He's had enough. He doesn't know what to do with this girl. And then he gets all these injuries, and it's like, I think that's the thing that just pushes him right over the edge. This is she's ruthless in this chapter, Arya.
So we show up at the inn, and a lot of Arya's favorite people happen to be here. The Tickler, Polliver. We have this squire that came along for the girls.
Is this Peter Pimple, or? I think he's a Frey, isn't he? This squire.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay.
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's some sort of relation to Peter Pimple.
Okay. Yeah, there is she does throw some at him and his pimple pops.
Yeah.
Kind of gross.
Yeah.
So they're questioning the Hound, and of course, one thing leads to another, and they end up fighting. The Hound instantly knows where this is going, and stands up just in time.
And this is with the backdrop of them both finding out that Joffrey's dead, and that apparently the imp and his wife, and Arya thinks to herself, what wife? What are you talking about? What? This description of Sansa changing into a wolf and growing wings and flying away and escaping. So they've heard that Joffrey's dead, which in a way will be something that Arya's happy about, because she can cross him off the list. But she does feel a little bit of resentment of like, I wish it was me that had done that.
Or she wishes she'd been there to see it at least.
Yeah. And she's like, she just presumes, I think, that, there is no other sister. What do you mean, other sister? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. She contemplates being the only Stark left, which is kind of what Jon contemplates as well in the next chapter. They all seem to be going through this crisis of where are all my where's my pack? And she thinks about, when she dreams when she's a wolf that she's with a pack again, and I think she's just, and I think she's probably given up on will Sansa actually be alive? Is it worth sticking around to see if I can find my sister? I think she genuinely believes they're all dead, and that she's the only Stark. But she is brutal. She goes for it. She stabs the squire and she kills the Tickler. In fact, she's more brutal. She can, in terms of ticking off this on a kill sheet, she's actually more brutal than the Hound in this chapter.
So let's talk about this scene with the Tickler. For those of you that haven't read it in a while, I just want to read this because it's just incredible. She says, in full attack mode, "Is there gold hidden in the village?" she shouted as she drove the blade up through his back. "Is there silver, gems?" She stabbed twice more. "Is there food? Where is Lord Beric?" She was on top of him by then, still stabbing. "Where did he go? How many men were with him? How many knights? How many bowmen? How many? How many? How many? How many? How many? Is there gold in the village?" She's like, and Sandor then has to come and drag her off.
Yeah.
It's pretty it's really high intensity, very feverish. Even Sandor is like, whoa, this is...
I mean, with you saying that she's 13, do you think... I mean, I know that we've only... Sansa had her first moon blood not that long ago, although I don't know about the timeline of the story in King's Landing. It was before the Purple Wedding. In fact, wasn't it before? It was quite a while ago.
Yeah, no.
Wasn't it around the Battle of the Blackwater? So it was maybe like a year or so. Did
it happen in Clash or Game?
Clash, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just
we just read it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've already forgotten.
Round about the same time as the Battle of Blackwater, because she does seem very sort of hormonal. But I'm just wondering if maybe this is Arya. Maybe Arya's hormones are kicking in a little bit here. I mean, she even contemplates way after, like at the end of this chapter, after she leaves the Hound and all of this like brutal like slashing and stabbing and killing in the inn. She even contemplates killing the woman who's basically she's being robbed by this woman. But she kind of looks around and thinks, oh, there's too many people here for me to just kill her. And it's like, she's got a real mad on at the moment, definitely. And yeah, I mean,
I'd like to see that ad from Always. Just the tickler head stabbed.
Yeah.
Well, now we give you wings to stop your homicidal rages.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but that when she's trying to sell the horse to the woman, and she thinks that, I completely forgot about that. It's like,
yeah,
there is, and I've always said this, there is no going back to being just Arya Stark of Winterfell.
No,
ever.
No. Not if she's casually thinking about killing a random, fairly innocent woman for a horse.
Who, by the way, is very legitimate in her thinking that you probably stole this, so I'm not giving you that much money for it.
We have
Eric here. Hi, Eric. Ion is here. Thank you so much. I think I saw David earlier on. If I didn't say hello. So Connie says it's Mert Frey's son, who we'll see in the epilogue. So Ion says #save the Starks. So we also have the Hound obviously calling for mercy a lot in this chapter as well, which she doesn't give him. So
no, she doesn't think he deserves it. She says to him, "You don't deserve mercy."
But is it that he doesn't deserve mercy, or he doesn't deserve to be killed? I think she's torn on it, because she questions whether she should even still be on the list. She can't really remember who Micah is, and I love when Sandor says Michael. He's trying to piss her off, and I should have raped your sister and all this kind of thing. He's crying, and he's like, "Do you remember where the heart is?" And I'm like, every time I read that line, it's just like, God, so sad, so sad. And they do so well in the show, but he did kill a kid, so it's hard to feel too sorry for him. I feel like the Hound, the way I feel like Jaime. They are both on this really intense redemption arc. George has put them both on this arc, and I feel like Tyrion is actually going in the opposite direction, to the point where I wonder, will Tyrion end up killing the kid? Just they're very mirrored acts, He starts out being the guy that he's a very strong moral authority for us as readers, and he's deteriorating, especially by the end of this book, going into Dance. Like he will have deteriorated a lot, but the Hound isn't. I genuinely think he's trying to protect her, and he's trying to.
There's still something. I don't really know how to figure out what's going on in Arya's head at this point. I mean, I think there's an overwhelming sense of she must be split between being absolutely elated that somebody like Joffrey is dead now, but at the same time, it's she's surrounded by all this horror, and it's a very kind of they're not even gothic Arya's chapters. They're more just grimy and grim and slasher. Yeah, exactly. They're borderline sort of horror, really.
She's almost at Mike Myers level, isn't she?
Yeah,
Mike Myers. Like, she's almost like you can imagine her in the hockey mask.
But then there are other moments where she's like, she tends to his wounds. He doesn't ask her to do that. He falls off his horse, and she could just walk over to him and casually slash his throat. If she's contemplating doing that later on with this woman, I think she's got a much more casual attitude to horrific things than maybe Sansa has at this point. So even though Sansa's seen quite a lot of horror as well, but she does say she says the prayer, and then she even shocks herself. She surprises herself that she left the Hound's name out of the list, but then she does go back and say his name. So it's kind of like, oh, I forgot about him. She contemplates for a second whether or not he should still be on the list, and then she says his name again. So he, it's I don't know. I mean, maybe she just did think, well, leave him for the wolves or the flies or the crows, or you're not worth it. I can't. I don't know. What do people think? Confused Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, and of course, Connie points out that the reason we pointed out the Mercy thing as well. Maybe not many people know that, but she does become Mercy later on, and it's happened a lot in Storm. That Mercy she's been called for, or there's something to do with Mercy around her. But I feel like here's the question for the chat: how many of you think he is still alive? I think I'm okay if the Hound isn't alive. I think this is an okay way for him to go out. I think he has an arc that could be finished, or an arc that could keep going. I think he's in the in between.
I think it would be a crying shame if we don't see Sandor again in a different version of him. This more the gravedigger kind of enlightened way. I don't think his story that's entwined with Sansa is finished, and the fact that he was when he was crying, in my mind, he was crying about the fact that he wasn't ever going to see Sansa again.
Yeah.
And I don't think it is necessarily that he's in love with her. I think he feels that he should be her protector. She looks at him as if he's some sort of lady, replacement of her direwolf protector lady. So there's a bond between them.
I mean,
I think it still needs to be explored. Yeah.
I think in the same way as a lot of people, I don't ship them either. Although I can see why people do, for sure. I don't ship them either, but there is a theory out there that Jaime and Jon will end up, like, Jaime might end up being Jon's hand or his Kingsguard of some sort. And in the chapters we had this week, you could definitely draw. They're both thinking about legacy back to back there, and about how they'll be seen by the world, and they're both thinking about duty and honor as well, and they're both thinking about what's best for what's the greater good, not in the way Tywin thinks about it, but genuinely what's the greater good, and shed the least amount of blood, or if we have to shed blood, we'll shed blood, but we'll do it in an honorable way. Very different to the way Tywin thinks about it. But yeah, I can totally see that Sandor and Sansa definitely have a reason to have their stories interact again, and I am really looking forward to them at least meeting up in the show next season, so that hopefully in the books we'll have that soon as well. But Yeah. So yeah, Arya. Then the Bravos, the on the ship, that happens quite surprising. You know, she thinks that the features, this coin is sold, the features on the face have worn away, but obviously we know that it's a faceless man coin, so that's why there are no features. And of course, the captain on this Bravosi ship instantly says, "Oh, Paladar Harris, please come on, blah blah."
Yeah.
And, it's, you know, you're getting your own cabin kind of thing, so it's a big deal.
Do you think this is by chance that he's there to take a, you know, that he happens to be going to Bravos?
It
Excuse me.
does feel a little bit coincidental, yeah.
At this point, she's still intent on going to the Wall, isn't she, to see Jon? I think she you know, she's got, you know, she dreams about having a pack together again, so she does want to see. She does want to kind of reconnect, I think, and she sees that through Jon and seeing Jon at the Wall. But she seems to kind of quite quickly be, okay, then, Bravos, you know.
It is a very quick decision. There's a few coincidences at the end of this novel, though. Like, Stannis shows up just when Jon is in the middle of treating with Mance. It's a little bit coincidental. So I don't think there's a grand conspiracy around that, or theory. I don't know how you would. I don't know how anyone would control where she is at this moment. Are they waiting for her? Is that what you think?
Could be something as simple as she's been offered comfort, hasn't she? She doesn't have to clean the decks to earn a keep. She's actually being given a cabin, and everyone is being, you know, treating her as some sort of visiting dignitary. So I think something as simple as that, after what she's been through, might make her think, you know what, forget whatever brutality lies ahead. Let's just go and see what's happening in Bravos, and I'll continue my adventure there. I don't know.
Marine says the ship was sent by Jaqen, and that the people on the ship obviously know the faceless men can't kill anyone they know. So yeah, because she has the coin later. Yeah, I see. Yes.
And they're all falling over themselves to say, "This is my name. This is who I am."
Yeah. But that doesn't. That's because she has the coin, though. That doesn't necessarily mean anyone sent them, right? Because everybody would know.
It doesn't, but it just seems to be. I suppose it's a bigger question of whether or not the faceless men recruited Arya right from the beginning. They knew that she was on her own. They knew she was vulnerable. Nobody was with her. And, you know, this is the first time that she's been, you know, she's an unaccompanied minor, and they can swoop in and just kind of take her back to the House of Black and White. At that point, it just seems to be, I don't know if she's being watched, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it definitely could be, for sure. I do think they were recruiting her from the beginning, yeah. But it's kind of like all Irish people know you have to stay away from leprechauns and fairies. All Bravasti know you have to give your name to faceless man as soon as possible. So that's it for Arya for a while. We don't see Arya till dance, right?
No, I don't think so. No,
no, we do. We see her. We see her.
Yeah, but it's like Cat of the Canals.
Cat of the Canals. Yeah. All right. So we're on to Sam 4. Sam 4. This is where it gets a bit tricky with the old election numbers. Now, I remember back in game, Mormont said that all in all, there was about, your favorite number, about 1,000 men at the Wall. Now, this election suggests that there's about 590 odd left. So that's a lot of men that have been killed in the various. And it's getting a bit. The election is a bit weird because you can vote for somebody if they're not on duty, or if they're on duty and can't vote for themselves. So how do you know that your vote is being cast the way?
The whole system can be gerrymandered completely. But I think that I mean, we know what's going to happen, and you can see it being set up here already. You know, Jon's not interested in the vote, and he's just kind of going off doing his own thing. And Sam recognizes, it's interesting because a lot of people criticize Jon for being this like real emo kind of character up at the wall, but Sam recognizes that, you know, the problem with Jon at the moment is he's grieving. So yeah, he isn't going to be as enthused about things. You know, he's happy to see Sam, but not as happy as you expect him to be. He's grieving for his wildling girl and the brothers that he's lost. So I think there's a few things that happen here actually before we start talking about the election. When there's this reference to Craster's daughter is now feeding Mance's son, which kind of goes back to what we were saying before about this potential connection between Craster and Mance. I don't know. I don't know whether I like that more than Mance being a Stark bastard and being sent to the war like all the other Stark bastards are, but there does seem to be... There's this thing as well about the wall bleeding. No, that's in the next chapter, about the wall weeping.
Yeah.
When Sam says to Jon, is there honor in a lie, even if it's for good purposes? So I wanted to ask you that question, just generally in life. Do you think that there is honor in, and to people in the chat, is there honor in a lie if it's for a good purpose?
So there's a whole philosophy on this, that you should never lie, ever, ever, ever. I think there is. If you have somebody who's really sick and, you know, the odds aren't good, I think a lie there might be necessary to keep them hopeful, because there is also such thing as a will to live. Also, I regularly encourage my husband to tell me that I look fantastic, even when I look like shite. That's honourable.
But is it, I mean, so I think, I suppose you would say that you wouldn't even call it a lie. We say white lies, don't we? Or bending the truth. You could argue that it's bending the truth, but if it's for a good purpose.
Yeah.
So I think in this example that we have here is, would it be, so the purpose would be sending Gilly to Hart Hill, away from all the fighting and the drama of everything that's happening in the north, and settle her in his father's household. That he seems to think that that's a good purpose for Gilly. So he would be bending the truth to say, but it wouldn't even be bending the truth. This would be an outright lie, that this baby is my bastard. I fathered this baby. And he even starts to think that his father might even be proud that he's been able to accomplish that.
I think so. I think even Jon says there's a possibility the kid could become a knight. You know, there's lots of this guy, like there's only good could come from it. I think Lady Wolverton says a lie by omission. I mean, it is more than that, I guess, because he is contributing information that's false. But I guess he's omitting the key. I guess he's omitting the truth of the father. But I think there is honor in a lie. I mean, even Stannis will say in the next chapter, which made me think about honor and lies as well, about Ned being that he was the most honorable man that you'd ever meet, or something like that. And I just kept thinking, is he? I mean, why do people have this opinion of Ned? Where did they get it from? Like, what did he actually do to earn this?
I wonder if Stannis may know about Jon's true origins.
This is the thing. Yeah. Because, and that's an opinion you could really only hold if you knew about Jon's origins. Because there we have a lie that was honourable, potentially.
Meridian says here, no, lies will always catch you out and often make things worse in the end. I think trying Connie. I think that I suppose I'd have to look at each example on its merit. Like, why would you have to tell a lie for what particular purpose? But I do think as well, Barbara said Ned told Arya a lie. A lie told to keep someone from being hurt is Stark approved. So this way of doing things does have the Stark seal of approval. You can bend the truth and you can tell a lie if it's for the right reasons or for a good purpose. But I just think sending Gilly to Hart Hill wouldn't necessarily be the right thing to do or a good purpose. I think he would be. I don't think it would be. I think he's overestimating how safe she would be.
Well, remember, Sam has had more interactions with the others, so he knows the threat. So in that position, I mean, it's coming for everybody anyway. Why not buy her a few more months away from it all?
I just it's an interesting concept that obviously Sam is deliberating over this. Thought, you know, should we just tell the truth and say, look, this is what's happening here. This is the situation. Can you help? This is because it's tricky. You know, people still have this opinion that the wall is, you know, it's kind of defending these imaginary, like grumps and grumpkins and all that kind of stuff, and it's all a bit of a fantasy. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for your truth to be believed.
Yeah.
So
I'm always
I'm
always of the opinion there are no when it comes to moral issues, I don't think you can have sweeping generalizations. I mean, Sam Harris has this thing that you should never lie under any circumstances, not even white lies, and it's just like I always like just kind of tense up with that because there's every situation needs to be taken.
I mean, if you know that it's going to be something that I suppose it's that, like, who benefits from this, and if what you're doing is ultimately the truth will actually make somebody feel less confident about themselves or will lead to the bigger picture being even worse, then yeah, maybe I can see an argument for maybe, you know, softening the truth a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards truth is always the best way, but I don't know. I'm just I don't know. The older I get, the less I'm sure about that kind of thing. And the more I think you can't have black and white moral obligations like that because it's too. It can be too constrictive, ethically. But I do agree with you that I don't necessarily think sending her to his family is necessarily a good thing. But at the same time, I don't know what else does he do with Gilly? What does he do with her at this stage? I mean,
I think
maybe
if
Winterfell was around, he might be able to ask Jon to do it.
Yeah.
You know, could you send? There'd be no problem, but they don't have anywhere they can go to at all.
So actually, Jon saying yes to that question in the next chapter would solve not just his problem and Stannis' problem, but actually quite a lot of, you know, she could have quite easily gone and had a happy life with her and a baby, servicing the Stark household, the new Lord of Winterfell. Oh, it's
a tricky one. It
is a tricky one, yeah.
Especially when we know, with the benefit of hindsight, what's going to happen with Dala's baby. By the way, Dala has died in childbirth. And I said this before, that we have so few women dying in childbirth, and yet so many of our characters have come from, were born into a situation where their mother died. Tyrion, Dany, and Jon. So it's, you know, so we've had Dala, there's somebody else, and I couldn't think of it today. Somebody else dies in childbirth in this current series.
Well, yeah, Dany,
Sorry, Dana dies in childbirth, and who else dies in childbirth in the series? There's somebody else
in the series.
It's a minor character, and I can't think of it. Anyway, I feel like these things come in threes, and I might.
Joanna, Tyrion.
Joanna, yeah. But there's somebody else within like this time period dies. I can't think of who it is. Anyway, it'll come to me probably during the week when I least expect it.
An Ironborn, maybe? Ironborn.
I don't know. It's not a main character at all.
Martell.
Dala is definitely the biggest character to die. So that'll tell you how minor the other character is.
Connie says Minissa went.
Maybe, yes, I think it could be went. That's right. I think you're right. Yes, thank you, Connie. Yes, because went was in the back of my head. I was like, it can't be. Why would that be went? But thank you.
Yes, and Edmure's mum.
Yeah, there's loads of people that have died in childbirth, and I know I recommended this on, I think this is a stream with AU. I just finished The Faithful Executioner. It's a book about executioners in the 1500s. So good, like fantastic book. But the statistics were crazy for women dying in childbirth. Just the baby dying, it's like 1 in 20 at the time. So we should see, I mean, we don't have a huge amount of people pregnant in the book to begin with, but we probably should expect another character. I feel like these things will come in threes. I think Jane Westerling.
Westerling, yeah.
That's my
in the prologue.
Yeah. I think it's Jane Westerling in the prologue. I know it should be a maester in the prologue. That's if the pattern's right. Is that right? But I think it's Jane.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to die in childbirth.
No, it's just, it doesn't necessarily have to be a maester that dies, but somebody dies and a maester features, or Old Town will feature. So she's either in Old Town or she's got a maester with her.
I think it's going to be Jane dying. I think it'll be her dying in childbirth, definitely in the POV. Yeah. That's my money, because we haven't seen a major character, and it could be Dany later on towards the end of the series as well. But Brienne's mom, did she die in childbirth too?
Oh yeah.
See, there's quite a lot. And with winter coming as well, it's going to be, you'd expect. We're still not. It's kind of unclear. I guess Dala died in childbirth and not as a result of the panic or the
fighting. Yeah,
but it seems that she dies in childbirth. But
so it does seem like more than 1 in 20, doesn't it? It seems like probably.
Yeah, well, and this
1
would
in
be
10,
earlier,
1 in 5.
Would this be earlier than the 1500s? I guess. Yeah. So so we have Gilly feeding this baby, and
greedy baby.
Yeah.
So it does, I don't know, I mean, it does sound a bit, I mean, she talks about how her baby isn't as, is a bit more gentle. So I don't know. I just think there's something about this baby that links to Craster more than we think.
So if a Craster's baby, though, if it's supposed to end up being a White Walker, it may not want to eat that much. So maybe there's something to do with that as well. I don't know. But what else? Was there anything else in the Sam chapter?
No, I mean the beginnings of the talk about the election, or the what do they call it? I was going to say the sorting, but that's a Harry Potter thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The summoning, the reckoning. But yeah, it's the election effectively for the succession of the Lord Commander. And you need around 2/3 of the votes. So there's this system going on at the moment where you've got 2 of the oldest, and like I suppose who you would expect to take up the command is Cotter Pike from Eastwatch, and Mallister from, where is he from? He's from the other end of the wall.
Yeah.
They hate each other. They're very rarely have anything to do with each other. isn't Malister, he's
Dennis
okay,
Malister,
but he's
yeah.
just very old. Isn't
Mhm.
he the chap that's really old?
Mhm.
And Cotter Pike again is Ironborn. So between them, Sam figures out that between them at the moment, Slint is in third place because a combined number of votes for Cotter, Pike, and Malister actually equates to about 2/3. So what he reckons is it's like Newsnight watching the election. Oh, if this person withdrew, then everybody else would throw their pebbles, coins, whatever into the ring of the other person who's that's how it would work. Take one name out and all the other votes go to the one who's remaining, which means that I suppose the way he's not thought about Jon yet, Jon's name hasn't been mentioned, but the feeling that I get is Sam is being quite brave in I suppose what he's doing here is he's electioneering, isn't he? He's starting like the hostings almost of and putting pressure on people about how they should vote. And I think what he wants more than anything, and I think probably most of the Night's Watch want more than anything, is somebody of the Night's Watch who knows and understands the order, rather than a new pretender that's come from King's Landing. But I'd forgotten how slimy Bowen Marsh was in this chapter. So he does exactly that. He removes himself from the vote and urges everybody to vote for Slint. Which is just like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Bowen? I don't, because he's one of the traditional members of, I think he worked quite closely with the Old Bear, and he's one of the kind of like traditional men of the Night's Watch.
Tywin has promised to help them if they basically put somebody that's favourable to the crown.
Yeah,
so they're not putting behind them. They're not like.
Well, he's obviously, clearly he's promising him all sorts of things.
Yeah.
If you do this, because even though he is injured, I don't think enough to actually remove himself from, because he was commanding some of the battles. I don't think he was injured enough to remove himself from that, from being in the frame, without there being a certain amount of pressure put on him. But that's exactly what he does, and obviously Slint's numbers will go up now. But yeah, so that's where we're left, and again we're reminded that Sam has taught the ravens to say snow, snow, snow.
Yeah. We'll be talking about the ravens when it comes to the election a little bit, because there's a weird thing that happens with the ravens at an opportune time. That kind of helps win over some of the Night's Watch, I think.
Okay.
When they start screaming snow, snow, snow as Jon comes to take on like a key role potentially. But yeah, Jon isn't even taking part in the voting process. I love the voting process. I like the idea that you have a shell and an arrowhead and a coin, and like Master Aemon just like quickly sorting through them, like it's just this like kind of savant almost, just like quickly sorting through based on texture. So it's a really interesting idea, with an uneducated kind of voting pool, but they have to get over 300 votes, the person that's in charge. So all of them are a bit way off, apart from Slint. I think he's over 200 now at this stage. But
Meridian's been called out to save a leopard.
Oh gosh! Yeah. Oh, best of luck, Meridian. Fingers crossed everything's okay.
So she said she'll catch us later.
Poor thing. Okay, so Jon 11 seems really unexciting now. But let's talk about Jon 11. I hope that leopard's okay. So Jon 11. Well, this is all about the proposition that Jon is going to get from Stannis, of course. He is. We should say as well. He does mention in Sam's chapter about Ghost being away, and just the emo show 11. Yeah, thanks, Ian. That's exactly what it is. It gets a bit old here. He feels very unfettered, I think. He doesn't really know what to do without Ghost. Feels like he's lost, without Ghost. And he's not really entirely sure. I mean, Stannis offers everything he's ever wanted, his heart's desire.
When does Ghost come back?
In the next chapter.
Oh, does he? Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
It's just what was he doing? What are you doing out there, Ghost? But yeah, so Jon notices with Melisandre that she summons him to see the king, and he notes that when that it's to see the king and her. Like, it's not like she's obviously goes everywhere with him, and this is the thing around the wall, that she's the real queen, that Selyse is not. And he notes that he's a bit unnerved by her red eyes and the red smell. Which is interesting. Because we get that with the whites as well, that there's a smell almost that comes with the cold.
I'm just laughing at Iron Throne, Johnny's every Depeche Mode song.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah. But so he basically, Stannis says, I need all the wildlings to kneel. They all have to accept R'hllor, which I think is asking a bit too much. If the giants can bend, if their knees bend, I want them to kneel. Everybody can go and settle in the keep. That's what Ned wanted anyway. So Jon is like, okay. And I'll make you Lord of Winterfell. What do you think? Do you want that? And by the way, do you know that hot wildling that everybody's mad after? You can have her too.
Yeah.
So Jon needs to consider this.
Well, it's the first thing that Jon says when Stannis basically is scouting him out and asking him, what do you think about the wildlings? Do you think they have any honor? He's kind of reminiscing about Donal Noy being a good man and how he would have made a good Lord Commander. He kind of lets Jon get away with saying, took you long enough, mate, to get here and help us out. He's very favourable with Jon. So I suppose Stannis is capable of bending the truth if it gets him what he wants, or he's quite good at putting a spin on things. Whereas Mel, no, this is the truth. This is the enemy. This is, this is what you need to do. You need to give up your old religion. You need to, the king can remove this horrible stain of bastardy that you've got. And then this is what you need to do. This is you need to kneel and adopt this new religion. That's how it is. I'm not sugarcoating it for you. That's how it is.
Yeah, your vows don't count because you took them in front of false gods.
Yeah.
Which is, okay. I mean, he didn't take them in front of the seven. He took them in front of weirwoods. Weirwoods are powerful, Mel. You know this. So, that's a bit of a strange one. The other thing is she's brought this up a few times, and I keep forgetting about it. But that you're not allowed to name the other beyond the wall.
Yeah.
What is the name? Night King? Stark?
I mean, we just get the god of night and terror, don't we?
Yeah.
So she's referring to this person as a god.
See, will there be a name?
A manifestation of a god in this sense where we are, the location, the wall is like, you know, the old gods. And it's interesting that I don't think, although she may be warm, she touches him and says, this is what life feels like, only the dead are cold. But when they're going down in the lift, he can see, it's almost like wherever she goes, the ice is melting around her. And I think even if she's warm, she's not emanating that much heat.
Yeah.
That she's able to kind of melt this stuff around her. It's almost like the wall is reacting to her presence, to her just being there, to this what she brings with her.
She's just that hot.
It could be. It could be.
Right
I
now.
think there's this, like this, they're repelling the you know what she's brought with her, which is the god of fire.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense, actually. Oh,
it's funny how she feels more powerful at the wall, but yet you would imagine that it would be everything that would be stripping her of her powers, with it being so cold, and the, you know, the old gods and the gods of winter, you know, the kings of winter, all that kind of, you would imagine that she would be, you know, her powers would be diminished, but she feels the opposite. She's
Connie says John is hyper smell sensitive now. Maybe a ghost coming closer to him as well. Val smells like sparkles, honey's milk and vanilla wafers. yeah, she definitely. And then they start talking about homemade banana pudding.
Oh yeah. Oh, banoffee pie. Yes.
Yeah, sugarless life is joyless.
So Stannis is being quite open here, even though he's definitely trying to get, you know, he's appeasing to Jon and he's trying to get Jon on his side. And he comes straight out and says, look, the North don't know me. They know you. You're the son of Ned Stark. You need to, I need somebody who will have that influence that will bring the North to me, because, you know, they don't know me. Basically, he comes straight out and says, you are the weapon. I've recognized you're the weapon that I need to win this war, and this war isn't what I thought it was. I had my amazing hand Davos telling me that I had to fight for the realm, not expect to inherit it and then unite the realm. You know, I've got to prove myself. But you are the weapon. I am going to use you as the weapon.
He doesn't need Jon if he didn't fucking insist on this R'hllor shite. Like, if he didn't, like, I think, like, people might, if Stannis could compromise a bit more, which is like an oxymoron in itself, because Stannis and compromise don't come together. But it's just like, it's very hard for even Jon, like, when he's been handed everything on a silver platter, to go, I'm not so sure, Stannis. By the way, I do think it's a bit much for Jon to kind of complain that Stannis wasn't there. So I think Stannis, he came, like,
yeah, he was pushing it.
Pushing
it a bit, definitely.
I think, you know, oh, sorry, mate, I was just fighting a war at the Battle of the Blackwater. Do you know the one that your horrible stepmother and your bastard, or your father, you know, do you know the one that they kind of started? I've just been down there fighting that. So give me a break. I've had to burn traders. I've had to make shadow babies. You know, I haven't been sitting on my arse.
He is. Well, that's true. He's been very busy. He's been the most proactive king, I think.
Thank you, Lady Wolverton. You guys are brilliant as well. I love watching the streams. Connie says, where the hell did Selyse get indoctrinated anyway? That's a very good question. Very good question. Although, let's be fair, Selyse would probably be indoctrinated with anybody. Have you watched that thing on Netflix about the cult yet? Oh my God,
no,
Claire, you love it.
What is it called?
Oh God, Wild Kingdom, I think.
Wild Kingdom.
Oh, I'll send you the link. I can't remember.
Right.
I can't remember what it's called. You're gonna love it because you like all the culty stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Does anyone know what it's called in the chat? I think it's Wild Country, Kingdom, something like that. But it's very good. Very, very good. Connie says, yes, oh my God. If you remember the name, Connie, can you put it in the chat for us? Yeah, I feel like Selyse would kind of have fallen in with anyone. I mean,
yeah, so they're like mind control and like subtle suggestion and destructive cults and all that kind of. I think she would be prime for that because she's never really felt as though she's able to sort of satisfy her husband. So she's been longing for some kind of purpose and
Wild Country is what it's called.
Wild Country,
yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
So good. But and there's a few like Selyse like people in that, but there's a Mel type character in that as well.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
she's also. I mean, the thing is,
unbelievable.
she's not just on her own, is she? She's actually created a small. We've got the Queen's Men, who are also seemingly as devout as Selyse is. So she's got that constant. What's the phrase I'm trying to think of? Like positive reinforcement from the people around her that this is right, this is what you should be doing, this is all about the Lord of Light, and to the extent again where she's completely sidelined miles away down the other end of the wall, and Jon thinks, wow, yeah, this red woman really is the one that's like, he seems to be married to her much more than he's actually married to the Queen.
And like I mean, somebody like Jon, who's I think Mel underestimates him because he would in another situation he may make the perfect candidate for a cult, but he's already found his cult. That's the Night's Watch, and he's attached to it as if he's attached to a cult, because even though he has this strong pull to be Ned Stark's son and to be the Lord of Winterfell, even when it's in ruins and even with winter coming and all that nonsense, and Val on the table, come on. Even with that, he's still like, nope, my vows are there.
But what's funny is, Connie said that what's he called? Thoros was sent to indoctrinate Robert to no avail. However, Thoros and the Brotherhood Without Banners and Dondarrion seem to be much more successful at indoctrinating the people that they're amassing around them to the faith of the fiery god than Mel and Stannis and Selyse have been. They're not forcing. It doesn't seem to be that they're forcing people to kind of take on this new religion, but people are doing that. They're like dropping to their knees and saying, and like the Lord of Light. There was loads of them that had all gathered. When Beric was fighting with the Hound, and they all seem to have just kind of like adopted it like wholesale, whereas he wasn't successful at indoctrinating Robert, whereas Mel has been with Selyse, yet it seems to be the opposite. Everyone's and Stannis can feel that no one's taking me seriously, no one's accepting this new religion. I can't force the North to be on my side, but here's my weapon. And it just makes me think, will Jon be used as a weapon at some point by somebody? Is he a weapon?
Yeah, I think he is a weapon for sure. He's definitely, I think you could say he's the weapon. I mean, is it the man or the thing he uses? I think he is going to be used as a weapon. But it's funny with Stannis because in the last Davos chapter that we saw, it felt like he was half-heartedly into the ritual. They were definitely losing followers in Dragonstones. Davos notices that night on night they're losing followers. The more people they burn and the more they do their rituals. Stannis doesn't seem like he's fully into it, and I just wonder if he is using the religion to test people's loyalty. It's like he doesn't trust them to take him on as king. And the only way he can actually test that is if, like, well, if they're going to buy me as king, they'll do so by buying my religion. Like with the Targaryens, they bought into, you know, the incest and the bigamy and the madness. With Robert, well, there may not have been that much time to buy into whatever Robert was selling, drunkenness and death or whatever. But with Stannis, it's like, no, I'm going to bring them an actual religion. Let's face it, the Seven does nothing. There's no power. Like, we haven't seen any power in the Seven. I mean,
no.
Melora is actually, we've seen people come back from the dead. With Weirwoods, we've seen visions, all that kind of thing. There doesn't seem to be anything with the Seven. So if he can actually say it right,
it's a fake religion to fool the masses, to get them to. It's a ruse.
Yeah, the people have a duty to take on a religion. They have a duty to take on me. But I don't want them to not to take me on half-heartedly like they did with Robert. I want them to go full whack. And the only way I can test that is if they actually, I don't know if this is like a psychological subconscious thing.
Well, there's also I suppose it's about the religion that's more aligned with the state, and the traditional institutions like, you know, the conclave at Old Town, and the small council at King's Landing, and the Sept of Baelor, and these are all big national institutions that are kind of linked to each other, whereas this religion seems a bit woo-woo. It's a bit out there. However, like you said, there's demonstrably power in those other religions. I mean, I don't think, we've heard this a million times, that we're not going to see any manifestations of gods, and that we're not, George R.R. Martin takes a particular stance on religion generally. I think he's probably more interested in the themes around religion as like a social construct, rather than delving into the faith side of things. But I just can't help thinking that the Faith of the Seven is a fake religion. It's been invented for a particular reason, to subdue people into, and I think it's also a religion there's another religion that's hidden inside this new religion, and everyone's being fooled.
I think after Dance, maybe in the new year, we should do a stream just on religions, because I know you have a lot you could talk about on that. And I do think you're right. I think the Seven is there also to suppress the magical nature of actual religions in the world, for sure. Leopard update, people, badly injured paw, but he should be okay.
Oh, good.
Be with us a while. He needs a name. Any ideas? What instantly sprang to mind was Donald. So we don't all know. Or
one paw, yeah.
Or Jaime.
Jaime.
But only an injured paw, so I don't know. Luckily, it's just an injured claw. That's great news. Connie says padlocks, more magic. Got more magic with Santa dragons. Is Mel having more magic in the north because Jon and Bran are there?
Yeah.
I mean, it might be to do with the wall or the Weirwoods, that there's more concentrated. I'd love to know what's going to happen to Mel when she gets closer to the dragons. Will it be even better for her, or the same? Or when the dragons come north, if they come north and everything is there, what kind of magic is she going to have? But yeah, so I think that's it for me for John 11. Is that, were you surprised that he didn't jump at this offer straight away?
Not really, because his first instinct is to say, I am a man of the Night's Watch. This is before Stannis puts this offer in front of him, and Stannis is trying to figure out, he's basically kind of, he's trying to draw out from Jon, who is this guy? Is he going to be as honourable as can I use him as a weapon? So he's trying to scope this out, and Jon announces that he's a man of the Night's Watch, which makes me think that that is his first instinct. And then we get, from Jon's point of view, he starts thinking about how he would feel. That it almost seems to me like he's thinking that was a folly from childhood, this notion. And actually, now that this has been put in front of him, with, as we've said, that this could make life a hell of a lot easier for Gilly, for Sam, for Jon himself. It could establish, he does have Stark blood one way or another, to rally the North and reunite the Northern Lords back to Winterfell again. And and Stannis is saying it's not as ruined as you think it is. A castle can be rebuilt, and you can wake up as Jon Stark,
and
Lord of Winterfell.
Importantly, for somebody like Tormund and Mance and all of those guys, the reason they like Jon is because they feel like he's got part wildling blood. Because we have that story of Bael the Bard, and they think that all Starks are wildlings, or have some wildling blood in them. So there's a potentially a very interesting mix going on with Jon.
Well, I think that he thinks that about this, the urge to go forward, and because it would be the easiest thing in the world just to drop to your knee, pledge to Stannis, and immediately the title of bastard vanishes, and you are, I mean, I suppose he could be thinking, on whose say so am I Lord of Winterfell? I mean, you might be, there's a king in the King's Tower for the first time in however, people could be getting carried away with the fact that, oh, there's a king here, but actually, does he have the right to legitimize Jon? Does he have the right to just install him into Winterfell? So there could be all these. I mean, so it was almost, what really was like a proposal, wasn't it? Jon saying, "Can I have a bit of time to think about it?" He didn't give that immediate answer.
Yeah.
But I think the more the feeling that he has is he's going to be disloyal to his siblings, or even just the memory of his siblings, if he accepts this offer. And also it would mean turning against his father's gods. And I genuinely think, right back from those very first chapters in Game of Thrones, that Jon, out of all of the Stark family that we met at the beginning of Game of Thrones, Jon does seem to have more of an affinity with the North. He seemed to just get what the whole philosophy of the Night's Watch and the wildling that had deserted, and he was,
the North as well.
Yes,
that rat, like we talked about how much we loved that kind of rousing sing song he has with the wildlings as they're coming onto the fist.
And he not wildlings, sorry, the Night's Watch deserter, but he found the wolves. There just seems to be more of an affinity of the North, which I equate that to be, that would be quite difficult for him to think about giving up Ned's gods and the old gods, to accept a new religion. That bothers him. That really bothers him.
Yeah,
more than I think the reason that he asked for more time to think is because he's really thinking about Winterfell more than Val. He doesn't seem to. I don't feel as though. I mean, it could just be because he's grieving for his grit. It could be a number of different things, but I don't think he's really. That wouldn't be the bargaining chip for Jon. I think.
No, I don't think so.
Winterfell is more of a thing rather than Val, but I mean, wow, that would what a cherry on the top of an offer that would be. He
breaking his vows twice has caused him an incredible amount of pain. Killing Corn Half Hand and then the grit. It's like he broke his vow to the Night's Watch. He broke his vow to the wildlings, and both of them have caused like insurmountable grief at this moment in time. Like even Sam, he does now, when it's kind of all calm at the moment and Stannis is there, he now has time to think, and He doesn't have to. He's not in survival mode. He's not in exhaustion mode. He doesn't talk about the pain in his leg like he did the last few chapters. So there's nothing to distract him from that. I think you're totally right. I don't think he's going to give up Ned's gods just like that. Also, Stannis hasn't said, but I assume Stannis would want Jon to take R'hllor as well, not just the wildlings. Eventually, that's where it's going to go, right? Like that.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's going to force it on the wildlings, I mean, let's start out small with the wildlings. Let's get the wildlings to take our version of the gods in the north.
Yeah.
Like, why are you jumping straight on to like not even a Westerosi religion? This is like an ASOS religion, right? R'hllor is more of an ASOS thing.
She doesn't make a good sales pitch, really, does she, Mel? She's like one of these aggressive. You will do it this way.
Meridian update. The leopard is going to be called Davos, which is perfect, Meridian. That's amazing. Oh, I'm so glad he's okay. And she said that he's really adorable. So Lady Wolverton says, have you seen the theory that Quarren Halfhand is former Kingsguard? Yes, I believe Order of the Green Hand think that he might be Hightower or Went from Tower of Joy, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Went. Okay, Bubba says, hi, Bubba. Sorry, I didn't see you there in the thing. Yeah, I believe they think that we talked about this last week, actually. And who was with Corran that stays behind and let Jon and Corran go free? The other Night's Watch guy.
Oh.
They see the eagle. Oh, God, who is it? We were just talking about him last week. Anyway, that's Went and Hightower, and that Nance is Arthur Dane, and that Val is Arthur Dane's. That Val is Rhaegar's child, I think.
Oh, right.
Anyway, there's a lot of I went down an Order of the Green Hand rabbit hole thanks to Clare. I would recommend, if you're coming back next week to us, for John 12, I would recommend Preston Jacobs' videos on the election of Jon Snow. There are 2 videos. I think it's just called The Election of Jon Snow, because it covers like the kind of inaccuracies in the numbers here, or how the whole thing it tips in favor of Slint and then towards Jon very, very quickly, for no real reason, because even Jon at this stage feels very isolated and is very isolated from everybody, because they do see him as a turncoat cloak. So just if you're interested in seeing that before we finish off Storm next week. Do you have anything else to say about John 11?
No, it just that actually Stannis's and Mance's plans kind of align with Stannis, wanting his plans to let the wildlings through the wall if they bend the knee. I'd kind of forgotten about that. I sort of thought that it was Jon's decision to do that he allowed the wildlings to go through once he was Lord Commander. So I'd kind of forgotten that this came from Stannis originally, but of course the condition there is you all have to bend the knee. And that's kind of, and now I remember how they came through, like eventually, how they sort of come through the wall.
When Stannis arrives, when Stannis arrives, it makes you realize, oh, this is why they don't want bloody kings getting involved. Like, it just becomes a mess. Very quickly. But and Connie says the Crasters keeps videos. Yeah, Preston has great videos. I mean, they're a little bit off the. I think he had an unfavorable encounter with George R. R. Martin a few months back, where I think he
Lady went.
So I would recommend Preston and Order of the Green Hand for a little bit of tinfoil. But not always. Some of the stuff makes a lot of sense. I like the election video. That's really, really good. It's just kind of more of a breakdown of the election and lots of questions about the election, which we'll get to next week. Next week is the last reread discussion on this channel. I'll be moving all of our Game of Thrones stuff over to a dedicated channel from next week. I'll make sure to put a video. It's linked down below in this video, that channel already.
So you don't have to wade through the polish and
you don't have to. I've been doing my nails while we were talking, which is why I was. Do you ever have to smell your nail just to see did you put top coat on?
Yeah, I usually do that on my chin like that. Yeah,
I lost track.
Yeah.
So so you don't have to suffer nail polish anymore. I will have a dedicated channel for that. It's linked down below. I will put up a video during the week with the schedule for Feast, and if I get dance finished, I'll put that up too. I'll run it past you first, Claire. Dance is actually pretty huge. I didn't realize it would take us so long. I was hoping we'd have dance finished for when Fire and Blood comes out, but we're not going to. But we will have everything hopefully wrapped up by Christmas. So yeah, we'll be reading for Feast. It's 5 chapters a week, and the last week will be 6 chapters. It'll be 9 weeks in total. So I'm really looking forward to Feast. Feast is my favorite. I love Feast. Yeah. So I'm I'm glad we can do 5 chapters, because it's nice. I think it's nicer to have the 5. And I love Feast. So I'm really excited about that. Although I can see why Storm of Swords is everybody's favorite book. So much happens in this book as well. So I can see why everybody loves it so much. But we're almost at the end of Storm, and we'll finish it off next week. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us in the chat. Ian wonders about the Winds teaser chapters. I think we could probably do that in the new year, maybe take one at a time. There's 9 altogether, is that right? 8 or 9 altogether?
There's a few. There's the Mercy chapter is the one that I'm most familiar with.
You already did a stream on that, didn't you?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, me and Tony and MP really kind of broke down that chapter. I actually, in preparation for that, read all of the Arya chapters together in sequence leading up to the Mercy chapter. So
I'd like to do that for Sansa actually, and the Elaine chapters. Although I probably won't need to with the reread, but I think that's something that we could definitely do. It'd be nice and short videos as well, actually, if we did one at a time, maybe. Yeah. Because it looks like we're going to be waiting for another while for Winds. But we'll have Fire and Blood part 1 and probably part 2 before Winds. But yeah, so thank you so much, folks, for joining us. Please go and check out everybody else's channels in the chat. Lady Wolverton was here, and who else was here? Ellamore. There's lots of people there. Please go and check them out. And thank you so much for coming. And thanks, Claire, for being here. No
problem. And yes, Lady Wolverton, I would say I do recommend doing that for Arya's chapters and for Sansa's chapters as well. It just gives you a completely different take on their characters, because you know what's going on around them as you progress through the chapters, and it's I would definitely recommend that.
And maybe even Aeron's chapters.
Yes, that would be a good one.
That would be really good.
A kind of character spotlight.
Definitely those 3 characters change who they are in not just the titles of their chapters, but they change a lot. But especially with the last, I think that's going to be the last Winds chapter as well, that Aeron one that was released. I think that's the last one he's releasing.
Yeah, I hope so, because it's quite a few. Just release the book. Just release the book.
It's depending on how big this book is going to be. It's good. Whatever it is.
I don't mind I'm not that I want it desperately tomorrow, but I'm quite happy and prepared for him to be happy enough to put it out there when it's ready. But I think woe on the teasers now. Let's just wait until the book comes out. But I would like there's the Theon chapter. There's a few of them actually. The Mercy chapter, the Theon chapter particularly are quite juicy. The last Aeron chapter. There's a Sansa chapter. There's I think there's a couple of Arianne chapters.
I think just 2. So
a Tyrion chapter, a Barristan chapter. There's quite a few. So I
can't tell you how excited I was putting together the Feast one. I was like, So, okay. Thank you so much, Lady Wolverton. Thank you. We will be back next week. And Terry, I never said hello to Terry in the chat. Thank you so much for coming along. Thanks, Claire. Thank you, everybody. And we will talk to you same bat channel next week, same bat time. Nearly dropped the laptop there. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.